And we're back for UFC 327 predictions from Miami, Florida. The vacant light heavyweight championship is on the line between the former champion, Jiri Prochazka, and City Kickboxing's own Carlos Ulberg. It is, of course, for the vacant light heavyweight championship in the main event. We had 2 title fights 24 hours ago, but now we are down to 1 as Joshua Van and Tetsuro Taira have been moved to next month in Newark, New Jersey. Again, Prochazka Ulberg, the only title fight on the card. New co-main event, Azamat Murzakanov versus Paulo Costa. 12 fights in total. It's a good card. Is it an all-time great card? No, but it's a really good card with some really good prelims. Cannot wait, folks. Before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC content here on the channel. On Thursday, we're going to have our 5 best bets for this card, and tomorrow, we're going to have our PFL Africa predictions, and on Tuesday, we're going to have our PFL Chicago predictions with Sergio Pettis returning to the PFL cage. You're not going to miss either of those PFL videos, again, coming up here on Greedo Plays MMA. Main channel, Greedo Plays daily college basketball for 2 more days best bets, daily MLB, and daily NBA best bets as well. Let's do it. First of 12 fights in Miami this Saturday. We're going to kick things off with a matchup in the welterweight division as Charles Chuck Buffalo Radtke takes on Francisco Prado. A must-win fight for Prado in the UFC as he comes into this bout with a 1-4 record. Rare, honestly, you see guys with their 5th fight in the UFC at the record that Prado's at get another opportunity, but he is afforded one here against Radtke, and I'll tell you, I believe it's going to be a real uphill climb for Francisco Prado. Came into the UFC after winning the Samurai Fight House Welterweight Championship, lost to Jamie Mullarkey in his first fight in the UFC, beat Ottman Azaitar, and then now 3 consecutive L's against Daniel Zellhuber, which at the time, great fight, didn't mind it. Zellhuber's not very good. Jake Matthews, okay, veteran, and then Nikolai Voreknikov, or Verektinov, however you want to say his name, heard it both ways, a loss in New Orleans last year in the summer by split decision, competitive fight, but Prado ultimately is on the wrong side of a decision. Charles Radtke, known for his language in his post-fight interviews, just at least one of them in Australia. Radtke, at least 4-2 in the UFC, made his debut with a victory over Blood Diamond, where again he had some things to say in his post-fight interview, then knocked out Gilbert Urbina, ran into Carlos Prates, ultimately lost that bout, knocked out Matthew Semmelsberger in a minute, lost to Mike Malott, and beaten his last fight, Daniel Frunza, in early November over in the Apex with a 3rd-round submission. He was supposed to take on Jose Henrique last week in the UFC Apex. That fight got canceled, so instead they moved Radtke now to the pay-per-view card, obviously to open up the night against Francisco Prado. I mean, again, it's not as simple as, okay, you see a fighter who's 4-2 in the promotion against a fighter who's 1-4 in the promotion, but yeah, I am going Radtke. I mean, I'm kind of hard-pressed to not do so. I think Radtke has everything it takes to win this bout. I believe if I'm Prado, I'm looking for a takedown. It's kind of how I think Prado's going to have to win. I know Prado's striking is not bad, but that's where he's going to have his best chance against Charles Radtke. But I don't mind the defensive wrestling game out of Charles Radtke at all. And ultimately, guys, when you look at Charles Radtke's UFC career, yes, who are his wins? I understand. His best win ever, is it Frunza? It can't be Frunza. It's Semmelsberger. Is it Frunza? These wins are pretty bad, I understand. But he has won 4 bouts in the UFC. It's something Prado can't say he's done. Prado beat a washed-up, post-steroids Ottman Azaitar. Radtke, again, his only losses are Prates and Mike Malott. Malott, we'll see how good he is. He's a big favorite to beat Gilbert Burns next week in Canada. We'll get to that card, obviously, next week. But, you know, those are not bad losses to take. I mean, you got Prates on his way up, and you got Malott as the UFC was trying to rebound with Mike Malott after his Neil Magny L, and obviously Malott beat Radtke. And that's expected, okay? Got knocked out there, got TK'd out against Prates. That's fine. Does Prado possess the wherewithal on the feet to beat Radtke? I don't believe so. I think Charles Radtke is a better striker than Francisco Prado, and I don't mind what Radtke has on the ground either. He's not a bad defensive wrestler. He's got decent jiu-jitsu skills. Won the CFFC championship against, at the time, undefeated Raheem Forrest by submission by rear naked choke. I like what Radtke's got on the ground. I think his striking solid too. Prado makes for some really fun fights and can get into firefights in the feet as we have seen. Hell, again, the Zellhuber fight is right away the one you're going to think about. But I like Radtke a lot in this spot. Again, Prado went up to welterweight. A couple fights ago against Jake Matthews, lost. Varektinov lost at welterweight. Again, another fight at 170 for Varektinov, and I believe Radtke's going to come out on the right side of things. I will say Prado's got one hell of a chin on him, but I'm going to go Radtke to win the fight by decision. That's why, again, I'm going decision because of Prado's chin. Ultimately, guys, Prado's got potential. He just got into the UFC way too young. He's only 23. Like, hey, we just saw Kai Kamaka last week return and beat Dakota Hope after getting cut from the UFC all those years ago. I'm not saying Prado goes to the PFL, but maybe he does. Take some time, go to the PFL, go win or whatever, and come back. And I think Prado at like 28 will be a pretty solid UFC fighter. I got to go Radtke, though, by decision. On to our next fight in the middleweight division. We've got Kelvin Gastelum taking on Vicente Luque. Yes, Kelvin Gastelum and Vicente Luque are the second fight of the night and early on the prelims. And that's the thing, right? I know people are really hyping up this card and saying, oh, it's like, this is one of the best cards we've seen. It's, one of the best cards since UFC 300. It's not that. It's good. And that what makes it great is the prelims. This is the main card, especially without the flyweight co-main. It's not the best. But the prelims are great. This is one of these cards where it's not like they stacked, a women's bantamweight fight, or they put an unranked women's bantamweight fight low on the card, and now you're not interested early. No, all of these fights are going to be really good, and all these fights have big names. And I will say, hey, how about Elise Pereda last week in the Apex? Big finish win over Haley Cowan at 135 pounds. The women's fights have been kind of lit recently. I cannot lie. Anyways, Gastelum versus Luque, second fight of the night. Washed versus washed? No, I don't think I can say that about Gastelum yet. Now, will Gastelum make weight's a big question. Was originally booked to fight at 185 against Dustin Stoltzfus. Don't forget, this is a fighter in Gastelum who should be fighting at 170 pounds and maybe could have legitimately made a title run at 170 pounds if he decided to lay off the hamburgers and lay off the fast food, but whatever. It's fine, I guess. Gastelum, again, who's always been undersized at 85, misses weight against Dustin Stoltzfus. He wins on the Noche card, but he weighs in at 191 pounds. What are we doing? Again, Gastelum's a guy that will never get cut from the UFC, I don't think, despite all the times he misses weight. Dana has been mad at Gastelum at times, but ultimately, Gastelum is one of Dana White's guys. He won the Ultimate Fighter. He was the guy to beat Uriah Hall when the UFC was 100% going to do Uriah Hall versus Anderson Silva if Uriah Hall had beaten Gastelum. They were just setting that up. Chael Sonnen was setting that up. That's what they were going to do. Silva would have whooped Uriah Hall's ass, but whatever. Gastelum will always be somewhat of a Dana White guy, and he will always get spots, he'll always be on pay-per-view cards. They're never going to cut him no matter how many times he misses weight. I don't think he's going to miss weight here. He gets Luque. I don't want to say it's a layup fight for Gastelum, but it's a fight that Gastelum should win. Vicente Luque, guys, I hate to report, he's washed up. Okay, Gastelum, again, I don't think Gastelum's that washed up. He's fat and can't make weight. Gastelum has, since his return to 80, well, actually, no, the Chris Kerr's fight was, Chris Kerr's fight was 85, who am I kidding? Gastelum's won 3 of 5. He's won 3 of 5 going into this one. He went back to welterweight to fight Sean Brady, and then went right back up. I don't know why, because Sean Brady's pretty good. Who cares? He's won 3 of 5 and won 3 of 4 recently at 185 pounds. Vicente Luque's lost 3 of 4. Vicente Luque beat Themba Gorimbo back in 2024, but now we're looking at back-to-back L's to Kevin Holland by submission, and then Joel Alvarez. Joel Alvarez is really good. I cannot lie. Alvarez is really good. He's going to be fighting Yaroslav Amosov next month in New Jersey. I can't wait for that fight. That's going to be great. Winner of that fight, for sure, going to get a top 10 shot after. It's going to be phenomenal. I cannot wait. But obviously, Alvarez beats Luque, and that's expected, right? It's a fight that Alvarez is controlling. It's a 30-26, and ultimately, again, we watch Vicente Luque, and he just doesn't have much left in the tank. And again, the alarms are ringing after the loss he took to Jeff Neal. I know right after the Jeff Neal fight, the next year, he came back and beat RDA, but it never sounded great when he lost to Jeff Neal, and then it was reported that he had internal brain bleeding. He's won 2 fights since, and he won a 5-round main event against a washed Rafael Dos Anjos, but unfortunately for Vicente Luque, he himself is washed up. And that was on full display against Joaquin Buckley. He gets dropped and kind of just shells up, and that's something we had never seen in a Luque. He was just an all-time, war mode fighter. He has not been the same. He does not take damage the same anymore. Kevin Holland subbed him. I get it. Luque kind of put himself in a spot to get submitted, but still, I don't love that. Gastelum should win. Kelvin Gastelum, if he needs to wrestle here, it's going to be there. That top pressure on Luque, I don't think he's going to get subbed. I don't think Luque is going to be able to sub Gastelum, at least off of his back. I think the wrestling game is going to be there for Kelvin Gastelum on the feet. Gastelum did drop Dustin Stoltzfus, so there's that. And honestly, look at Gastelum's last 5 fights. His losses are to Sean Brady and Joe Pyfer. Brady, top 5 fighter. Joe Pyfer now, someone said top Pyfer. Top 5 fighter. That's a tongue twister. Joe Pyfer is a top 5 fighter. No, it's not. I just made that way too much complicated. Too complicated than it should have been. Anyways, I'm going Gastelum to beat Luque. What does Luque have for Gastelum? You're not knocking Gastelum out. His chin's, crazy. Gastelum's never going to be knocked out. Luque's not going to outstrike Gastelum, I don't think, and do enough damage to hurt Gastelum. Luque's not going to out-wrestle Gastelum, and Luque's washed. I hate to say it. Again, he doesn't take damage the same. Gastelum will win. I think he'll easily win. I'm going unanimous decision victory for Kelvin Gastelum. It's like a month's notice. This is supposed to be Luque versus Dawkins. Kyle Dawkins then got called to fight in the White House, so it is what it is. I'm going Kelvin Gastelum to win this fight. Third fight of the night, we go to the lightweight division. We go to Chris Padilla taking on Markel Mederos. Taco Chris Padilla continues to win in the UFC. This is a fighter that was well known in the regional scene, finally got a shot in the promotion, and has not looked back since. Padilla continues to overcome the odds, at least it feels. All of his fights are he's either an underdog or he's, even money, and he continues to win. The guy comes into the UFC after being the UNF, the Up Next Fighting champion, that's in California? Okay, in SoCal, whatever. He beat the Guitar Hero Justin James in his final regional scene fight. Then comes into the UFC as a plus 350 dog, submits James Law on top in the first round through a naked choke. Then fights Rong Zhu. We had him here at plus 250 at the start of the week. TKO's Rong Zhu, it's a doctor stoppage. Then fights Jai Herbert, Padilla plus 105, beats Jai Herbert. Even money fight against Ismael Bonfim. It's a victory for Chris Padilla as well. We've been on the Taco Padilla train after the James Lawntop fight, and it has continued to cash and continued to hit for us. He now gets Markel Mederos, and it's the first fight in Padilla's UFC career where he actually is a favorite. Padilla right now ranging anywhere from about minus 165 to minus 190, dependent on the book. And he should beat Mederos. It's a fight set up for Padilla to get. I've been so impressed with what Chris Padilla has done in the UFC. Again, striking is there. If he needs to grapple, he absolutely can. Markel Mederos is a fighter that will get hit. I will say, he's a fighter that is going to get hit. Fought a way too competitive fight against Austin Hubbard. I don't love that. He barely got by Austin Hubbard and beat him by split decision. That was 2 fights ago. His last fight was a victory over Mark Shoniski, the Shark. I almost forgot that fight happened, but he wins it by unanimous decision. Again, it's a good win. Really just outworks his opponent in that fight. The Austin Hubbard fight, though, is just, he wins. It's just so unimpressive. Got his UFC contract by beating Isa Isakov on the Contender Series, then beat Landon Quinones in an uneventful fight, and that's the thing. Markel Mederos does enough just to win. Did knock down Chiniski in his last fight, but again, just not a fighter who's going to clearly up ahead, or clearly win a fight is what I'm trying to get at. Again, the Landon Quinones fight, he wins it, but it's not impressive. Austin Hubbard barely does enough. His last fight, sure, he wins, but Padilla's going to bring the action to you. Padilla is going to walk forward. And Taco Padilla has just been so impressive so far in his UFC run. The Bonfim fight finishes him in the second round. I know Ismael Bonfim is nowhere near his brother Gabriel Bonfim, but still, it's a great victory for Padilla in that one. Jai Herbert fight's close, not the most action, but regardless, Padilla gets it. The Rong Zhu fight TKOs him. Dr. Stoppage does so much damage to Rong Zhu in the bout. The Lawntop fight, Padilla shocks Lawntop and wrestles him and out-scrambles him. I mean, again, Chris Padilla, regardless of what the game plan is and what he needs to do either on the feet or on the ground, he's able to accomplish it. He is a very good, very, very well-balanced fighter, and he's, again, great everywhere. This is a guy, again, who was not expected to go on this run in the UFC. It was a short notice call in the Apex to go fight James Lawntop, and he was expected to lose the bout. He wins it, and he's continued to piece together victories, and it's to the point now where if he beats Markel Mederos, you have to be looking at least top 15. I legitimately think so. Or maybe give him a fringe top 15 fight. Give him a Nasrat Haqparast. And if he beats Haqparast coming off the Killian Salkid loss last year, now we're officially looking at top 15 fights for Padilla. I think he beats Mederos. Again, Mederos has not wowed me. He does take damage. Again, not a lot of damage, but again, a lot of his fights are just razor thin. It's like, all right, I think Mederos won that round. I think he barely got it. But there's not much I can say about Markel Mederos that really wows me. I'm just going to be honest with you. I can speak, for days about what Chris Padilla does and how impressed I've been so far with Padilla in the octagon. To me, the decision here is, all right, do we take Padilla to get a finish, or does this one go the distance? I think you give Padilla enough time against Markel Mederos. I think he does get that stoppage. I'm going to go third round TKO for Chris Padilla. We rarely take third round finishes, but we did last week with Ethan Ewing against Rafael Estivam. So I'm going to take another one here. Chris Padilla finishes Markel Mederos late in the fight. I think eventually he'll break this guy. Padilla, the much more experienced fighter, despite there only being a 1 year gap in age. Padilla wins the fight by third round TKO, going to 5-0 in the UFC. We move on now to our fourth fight of the night. We go to the strawweight division. Potential title eliminator at 115, I guess. Tatiana Suarez, the former title challenger, versus Luque Godinez. What is happening at 115 pounds right now? I don't know. Yesterday, Vina Jandiroba beats beats Tabitha Ricci. Yay! Woo! We're so excited. That's what the division needs. Vina Jandiroba. Oh my goodness. Why? I know the UFC was mad that happened, but that's neither here or there. Vina Jandiroba wins and then calls out the champion for a rematch. How about no? How about never? We never want to watch you fight for a title again. No. Jandiroba is so boring, bro. I don't care what anybody says. I hate watching Vina Jandiroba fight. I get, her jiu-jitsu is great. I don't love watching Tatiana Suarez fight either, I'll tell you that. But at least Tatiana Suarez fights, there's something to look forward to, because in the third round, she completely disappears. Third rounds for Tatiana Suarez are brutal. She's a 3-round fighter that ultimately I don't think can ever win the world championship, because she knew she would need to get a finish. And we've seen it before, but it's not a consistent thing out of Tatiana Suarez. She unfortunately is not a 5-round fighter. She's not even a 3-round fighter. She's a 2-round fighter. And that's how Tatiana Suarez wins. She gets the first round, she gets the second round, and the third round is all about survival for Suarez and jumping on legs and jumping for hips and just trying to grab a hold of you, because the third round she will likely lose. The peak of the Tatiana Suarez career, in my opinion, is when she melted Carla Esparza back in 2018 in Dallas. That was crazy. That was now 8 years ago. She then beat Nina Ansfroft, didn't fight for 4 years, won 2 fights, got the Zhang Weili fight, was a favorite to beat Zhang Weili, and disappeared after the first round. So, can she win the first round against Luque? 100%. This is going to come down to, can Luque Godinez stuff a takedown from Tatiana Suarez? The answer to that question, I think she'll stuff in a couple, but not enough. Suarez is going to be persistent on those takedown attempts, and she'll get it eventually. I think Suarez is the stronger fighter. She's got more range into Godinez. Like, Suarez, again, Suarez is big for 115, excuse me. I believe she is. She's big enough for 115. Because, we've seen Suarez fight occasionally at 25. We saw the Montana De La Rosa return fight was at 25, and we thought Suarez was going to stay there. She goes back down to 15. Okay. She'll have a lot of size, I believe, and strength against Luque Godinez. Luque Godinez is good. She's a good wrestler, just not good enough for Suarez. It's hard to out-wrestle Tatiana Suarez, and if you're Luque Godinez, who, again, not a horrible striker, and I'd argue is a better striker than Tatiana Suarez, you now have to become a boxer in this fight. And she did outbox Jessica Andrade, but the thing is, Luque went 1 for 14 on takedown attempts, and Andrade was just so concerned about that wrestling, where Godinez was actually able to land on the feet while she, in between her consistently looking for takedowns. She beats Andrade, best win of Luque's career, and now you get Tatiana Suarez, where you can't really set up your strikes with your wrestling anymore, because she's not taking Suarez down. She just won't, okay? The only fighter to ever take Suarez down is Zhang Weili. That happened later in their fight in the 4th round, where Zhang Weili had top control that entire 4th round against Suarez, which makes sense because Suarez doesn't have a gas tank. Maybe in the 3rd round, Godinez could take her down, but the rounds that really matter, the round that really matters is the 2nd. We know Suarez is going to win the 1st. I believe Godinez is going to win the 3rd on the feet, and I don't think Godinez is going to have enough to finish Suarez on the feet. She's never won a fight by TKO, and Suarez has never been TKO'd in her own right, so I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to come down to the 2nd round. Suarez is going to out-wrestle Godinez in the 2nd, and that's what makes up the fight. Now, the question is, who gets the next title fight? It should be Zhang Weili, but why haven't they made that fight yet? Are they waiting for this? I'd argue Jillian Robertson should be getting a title fight over Tatiana Suarez. I think Suarez would beat Robertson. I think so. But I think I know what happens when Suarez fights Dern. Suarez wins the first 2 rounds, and then Dern wins 3, 4, 5 on the feet, maybe TKO Suarez late in the 5th round or in the 4th round, the championship rounds. I think I know how that fight goes. Jillian Robertson versus Dern. I think Dern wins because the fight stays on the feet, but who knows? Maybe Jillian catches her in something. Actually, I don't know. I don't think I want to see that fight. Never mind. Dern would destroy Robertson. Robertson would have no pathway to victory. Okay, yeah, just give me Zhang Weili versus Mackenzie Dern at this point then. There's nothing fun other than that fight. Like, Weili will beat Dern. Who am I kidding? But this fight, I think Suarez is going to beat Godinez. I think Suarez wins the first 2 rounds, and that's all it really takes. Godinez is going to come up strong in the 3rd round, and I think her striking is going to be okay early, but she's not stuffing takedowns out of Suarez early in the fight. A complete gas tank Suarez early is going to run through Godinez in the first 9 minutes of the fight. Last 6, she'll look like crap, but it's a 10-point must system, so she'll win. Suarez wins a 29-28 decision. Typical. I'd argue, yeah, just do Zhang Weili versus Dern. You can throw Suarez versus Robertson on the card. We don't care about Janji Hobo with all due respect. Go Suarez, Robertson, co-main. No, not co-main. Well, yeah, if you do Zhang Weili and Dern in China, sure, you can make it a co-main. I don't care then because of the fight night, but not in a pay-per-view, definitely. Anyways, Suarez decision win over Godinez. On now to our next fight, our 5th fight of the night. We go to a matchup, and a huge matchup in the lightweight division. Mateusz Gamrot takes on Esteban Ribovics. The question for this fight is it too much too soon for Esteban Ribovics? Because he's only 23. It's a massive step up. No, he's not. Sorry, he's older than 23. He's 29, excuse me. I don't know why I thought he's 23. It's still a massive step up at 29 years of age. And again, 29 is the point where, yeah, you should be fighting these type of guys. But you just lost to Nasrat Haqparast 2 fights ago. And now you're fighting Gamrot? I don't know. Guys, I know what Esteban Ribovics does. We all do. It's crazy volume on the feet. I'm looking to break you. We're gonna have a war. I'm gonna break you in the octagon. And it's kill or be killed. His last 3 fights have all been crazy paces. They've been insane. For some reason, 2 of them were in the apex. Which was crazy too, by the way. Ribovics had one of the fights of the year in 2024. He wins fight of the night on the Sphere card against Daniel Zellhuber. He wins. And they say, you know what? Go fight in the apex on a Manelkop Asu Almabayev card. And he loses to Nasrat Haqparast, where Ribovics probably should have got the win, but the fight was like too close for Ribovics. I thought he should have just easily won that fight. Whatever. And then he beat Elvis Brenner in his last fight in the apex. Again, fight's kind of close. He wins, and more damage is being done by Ribovics. I thought it was 2-1. No, I think you can give Ribovics all 3. It's close. The first round's close. Ribovics wins 2 and 3 though quite easily. The problem is for Esteban Ribovics is none of that matters in this fight, because you can do your thing on the feet, and that's great. He's great on the feet, all volume. It's kill or be killed. I mean, he knocked out Terrence McKinney. Ugly knockout, obviously, as McKinney either is finishing a fight in spectacular fashion, or he's getting slimed down the worst way imaginable. The problem for Ribovics is that striking doesn't really matter here, because okay, if Gamrot can't take him down, yeah, Ribovics will probably win. Probably. I don't know how Gamrot responds to a firefight like that. Gamrot does have a win over Sarukian. That is 5 years ago now, or 4 years ago now. I don't know how Gamrot responds to a war on the feet, just because he doesn't really fight that type of fight, because he's always able to get takedowns. Gamrot's gonna out-wrestle Esteban Ribovics quite easily, guys. This has Gamrot 30-27 written all over it. You will ask yourself, why is this underneath Holland and Randy Brown? Why is this underneath Pitbull and Pico? And also, the 4-fight window on CBS is Holland Brown, Pitbull Pico, Swanson Landwehr, Reyes Walker. You ask, why is Gamrot not on it? Because they think Gamrot's going to wrestle him the entire fight, and the fight's going to be boring. Because that's what it's going to be. They're going to show you all this fun stuff out of Ribovics in the hype package, which again, he has a lot of fun fights. And it's all fun and games until Gamrot's got him down for 12 out of the 15 minutes in the fight. It's going to be Gamrot takedown after takedown. Ribovics gets back up, dumped by Gamrot. And again, Gamrot's a good fighter. He's so underrated, but obviously, lost to Oliveira. It is what it is. Picked up a win prior to that against Ludovic Klein. He got robbed against Dan Hooker. That was unbelievable. But Gamrot's good. Look at the RDA fight. I know RDA was washed at the time, but he's able to get takedowns consistently in the fight. 11 takedowns against Rafael Dos Anjos. I thought he beat Dan Hooker. Gamrot, again, can strike. Like, the Armand fight was a pretty good fight on the feet, and ultimately Gamrot gets the nod. I just don't love them in a straight war type fight against Ribovics. I mean, I don't think anybody really wants to watch that, or sorry, wants to be in that fight. Excuse me, watching it. It's fun. I think Gamrot would stand a chance, I'll tell you that. It's just the wrestling is going to be a big factor. Esteban Ribovics, the last time he faced a wrestler, it is back in 2023, and it was his first fight in the UFC, but against Luque Radzhabov, got taken down 11 times in the fight. And when the fight's in the feet, Ribovics is just going for it. He knocks down Radzhabov in that fight, but still, he gets taken down 11 times on 21 attempts. I know that was 3 years ago, but Gamrot will do the exact same thing, but worse to Esteban. Esteban's not going to get up as many times as he did against the Tajik Tank, or it used to be called Jaguar Paw. Yeah, Mateus Gamrot dominates this fight. Yes, he lost to Charles Oliveira. Shocker, Charles Oliveira is really good at fighting still. There's no shame in that fight for that loss for Gamrot. His losses in the UFC, I'm not taking any other result as an answer. His only 2 losses are Charles Oliveira and now why did I just start blanking? Oh my goodness. And Beneil Dariush, my goodness. Dan Hooker fight does not count. Guram Kutateladze fight does not count. He did not lose either of those fights. Yes, he lost to Charles. Yes, he lost to Beneil. The others are all wins in my book out of Gamrot. Yeah, he got lucky in the Fiziev fight, but if they ran back Fiziev, Gamrot right now, Gamrot wins. So, whatever. Mateus Gamrot, in my opinion, is going to beat Esteban Ribovics. He's not going to fall into the trap of fighting a, kill or be killed fight with this guy. Gamrot wins the decision. Dana's not going to like it. Fans aren't going to like it. But Gamrot's going to keep winning, and minus 165 is absurd for this fight. It's a levels bout. On to our next fight. It is the first fight on the 4-fight CBS window. It's one of the final prelims, but again, CBS gets 4 fights. This is the start of it. Big shocker. Kevin Holland versus Randy Brown. So when obviously Tyra Van got bumped off this card and moved to next month's card in New Jersey, they replaced that fight on the main card with Cub Swanson versus Nate Landwehr. So they kept Kevin Holland and Randy Brown and Patricio Pitbull versus Aaron Pico in the prelims, likely because, again, they want people to buy the pay-per-view, buy Paramount Plus, and these are the fights they want people to see right away on CBS. So it makes sense. Holland versus Brown kicks off the CBS portion of the card. Kevin Holland is an underdog here, which is a little bit shocking, but it makes sense at the same exact time because, well, it's Kevin Holland. Some nights he looks like a world beater, some nights he looks awful. And in Kevin Holland's last fight, well, the guy lost to Mike Malott, not too concerned about that. The fight prior, he lost to Daniel Rodriguez. Nobody knows where Daniel Rodriguez is right now. There are rumors he's tied up with the cartel in Mexico right now. I'm not going to dive that deep into that, but I don't think Daniel Rodriguez is rumors he's in prison in Mexico. I don't know. He's probably never going to fight ever again. But the fact of the matter is, Daniel Rodriguez was the easiest fight Kevin Holland could have been given. He was a minus 600 favorite in New Orleans on a main card, and he lost to Daniel Rodriguez. And he got dropped twice by Daniel Rodriguez and fought a stupid fight in the second round. He was going to win the bout. And ultimately, I thought he still should have won. He won rounds 1 and 3. I thought it probably should have been a draw, but whatever. I don't know how Holland doesn't win rounds 1 and 3 in that fight. Whatever. Still, you can't have a competitive fight against D-Rod. Oh my goodness. Lost him a lot. Not a great fight. Holland's close in the stats, but yeah, Malott, 10-point must system probably wins. Probably wins rounds 1 and 2. Probably. Damage-based scoring, yeah. I think Kevin Holland can beat Randy Brown. Randy Brown lost 2 of 3 going into this fight. He had lost to Brian Battle back in December of 2024. Brian Battle, who just lost recently in the PFL in Pittsburgh to Johnny Eblin. But close fight, Battle wins. Brown then fights Nicholas Dalby, knocks Dalby out, and then gets Gabriel Bonfim and gets knocked out by Bonfim in a main event. First ever main event for Brown. I thought Brown was going to fight fairly well against Bonfim, who we obviously were not impressed with in his fight prior against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. By the way, is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson going to get a retirement fight in the UFC? Like, is he going to? I don't know. Guy's 43 now. Are they going to give him one more fight? Who knows? Maybe he'll fight till he's 49, like Randy Couture. But Gabriel Bonfim beats Randy Brown in the clinch, gets him with the knee, fight over. Don't love that out of Randy Brown. I mean, that's kind of, he's been a pretty good striker throughout his UFC career. Not a very hittable guy for the most part. He was knocked out by Luque back in the day, and Nico Price TKO'd him from the bottom with hammer fists. It was crazy. But I don't love the loss to Bonfim. I don't. And now Randy Brown, okay, you're 35 now. You're coming off a knockout loss against Kevin Holland too. is going to be more than willing to stand and bang with you all fight long. I don't think we see much grappling in this fight. If anything, I do believe it's going to be Kevin Holland shooting first, but this does kind of feel like a fight where Kevin Holland goes out there and says, oh, we're just going to, we're going to fight to the death. Best man wins. We're on CBS. Someone's going to get knocked out. I do believe there is a slight grappling advantage in my opinion for Kevin Holland. I think that's there if he wants it, and he might have to go to it. But on the feet, I think it's close. I think Holland actually wins, though. I don't love Randy Brown coming off a knockout loss, and it's in November. It's been a while now, but I don't love him coming off a knockout loss at 35, going on 36. He's about to turn 36 in a couple months. Don't love that from Randy Brown. I think Holland, whenever you think Kevin Holland's completely out of it, too, he comes back and wins a couple fights. Like, I still think Kevin Holland's probably going to end up top 5 all time in UFC wins when his career's over in about 8 years. He's got 15 wins so far. He's climbing the ranks, right? You get over 20, then that's real serious stuff, obviously, in terms of an all-time perspective, in UFC history. I think he gets win 16 here, right? The last time I counted Kevin Holland out, which I'm not going to do here, was after he lost to Roman Dolidze. Lost to Reinier de Ridder. I counted him out after the Dolidze fight too, but he loses to Dolidze, loses to Reinier de Ridder, and I was like, okay, Gunnar Nelson should be there for Gunnar Nelson, should be able to submit Holland. No, Holland wins, and that's kind of when I counted Holland out. Then he beat Luque, and then he got gifted a bout against Rodriguez and lost. And that was kind of always my thing with Holland. It was like, okay, unranked middleweights or welterweights, whoever, and Holland obviously for this fight at welterweight again, right? But I was always like, all right, unranked welterweights and even middleweights too, if they're strikers, Holland should be able to get them. Doesn't do it against D-Rod, which, again, kind of proved my point wrong that I always had said about Kevin Holland. But Brown's not going to grapple him, and that's always what Holland has struggled with. I think he should win. These are two massive welterweights, by the way, both men at 6'3", Holland 81-inch reach, Randy Brown 78-inch reach. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland to pick up the victory. I just don't like Brown coming off of the knockout loss. I think Holland's going to get a knockout in the second, maybe a sub, but I'm going to go second round TKO for Kevin Holland. This should be a better fight than the last CBS opener, which was Dante Johnson versus Cody Brundage. Holland wins by second round TKO. On to the featured prelim. It is a Bellator fight. Patricio Pitbull versus Aaron Pico, and Patricio Pitbull is a plus 250 underdog. Okay, I understand Patricio Pitbull's 38 years of age. In no world, should Aaron Pico be a minus 340 favorite in the UFC right now against any borderline top 15 fighter. I don't know what you guys see with Aaron Pico, but I don't understand it. I've never really seen it with Pico. We told you when he fought Leron Murphy was going to win. I was very confident Murphy was going to beat Pico. A lot of people bought in on the Pico hype, which I didn't understand. He was a minus 170 favorite against Leron Murphy. Made no sense. And Murphy spinning back elbow knocked him out. And Murphy was going to win even if he didn't knock him out. I know the fight was early on when he KO'd him, but regardless, that was a fight Murphy was going to win. I've never seen it from Aaron Pico. And I understand, okay, Aaron Pico is now fully in his prime at 29, and Patricio Pitbull is exiting his prime at 38. I get it. But never, when these two guys were in Bellator, was Aaron Pico remotely thought of good enough to beat Patricio Pitbull. Never. Never was he thought of. They were trying to get him up to a point where he could fight Pitbull. Do not get me wrong. They had always tried to get Pico to the top of Bellator, but there was always something that would happen and he would lose. And it's the Jeremy Kennedy loss. I know he got injured in that fight, but regardless, he never really got that fight and really took that step to get a big-time win in Bellator. His best win in Bellator ever was Pedro Carvalho, James Gonzalez. I mean, again, he hasn't beaten anybody. His best win, Justin Gonzalez is his best win. But Justin Gonzalez did nothing but lose after Pico beat him. So I don't know. He doesn't have a great victory. And I understand Pitbull's been underwhelming in the UFC. And he beat Dan Ige, but how great is a win over Dan Ige anymore? Yeah, it's not. Again, Dan Ige's washed. What can I say? Ezequiel Costa, obviously spinning back kicked him and knocked him out. But Pitbull beat Ige. He outstruck Ige. He wins the fight by unanimous decision. If he needs to wrestle, he can in that fight. Obviously, again, Aaron Pico, I understand how great of a wrestler he is. Patricio Pitbull's not a bad wrestler in his own right. Obviously, probably not on the level of Pico, but the point where it's like, all right, no one talks about Pitbull's jiu-jitsu. Pitbull's got really good jiu-jitsu. And when he fought Yair, I was wrong. I thought Pitbull was going to be able to take him down and submit him. He didn't even try. But that's a part of Pitbull's game that is there. Like he tried once. I think he tried once to submit Yair, but whatever. Pitbull can wrestle, and he's got really good BJJ. BJJ black belt, obviously, and just a fighter who doesn't always need to go to that because his striking and his hands have taken him so far in Bellator, right? I mean, look at his last fight in Bellator where he knocks out Jeremy Kennedy to defend the title. Yes, again, he left Bellator still with the 145-pound championship. Yeah, he lost in Bellator at the end of his run to Sergio Pettis when he went down to 35, but that was crazy, right? Pitbull's the 155-pound champion at one point, beat AJ McKee for the belt to get the belt back, and then went down to 35 to fight Sergio Pettis. It made no sense. And he did fight in Ryzen against Chihiro Suzuki, and he got knocked out, but came back and beat Jeremy Kennedy, lost to Yair, but beats Dan Ige. Guys, I'm going Patricio Pitbull to beat Aaron Pico. I don't see it at a Pico. And this is going to sound crazy. I think Pitbull's going to knock him out. I could be wrong, and I very well might be. I'm taking a plus 250 underdog to win. I'm going Patricio Pitbull to knock out Aaron Pico in the first round. I'll tell you this. Pico's not knocking Pitbull out. I don't think so. I know Pitbull's been in a lot of fights, and he's 38, going on 39. Yes, Pitbull's been knocked out twice ever. One, technically 3 kind of. McKee knocked him out and then subbed him and got him with the guillotine. But it's the Suzuki fight in 2023, and then... the Benson Henderson loss was an injury. Yeah, he's really only been knocked out twice, but actually only once against Suzuki. Aaron Pico's not chinning Patricio Pitbull. If Aaron Pico wins, he's going to win a kickboxing bout with some wrestling that he uses as well. I think he has a wrestling advantage against Pitbull, but I think Pitbull's able to get back up to his feet. I like Pitbull's jiu-jitsu a lot. I think Pitbull's able to threaten with chokes. I don't know why everyone's so wowed on Aaron Pico. Again, he's been Bellator's project for the longest time, and he goes to PFL, he gets released, or he doesn't re-sign, comes into the UFC, immediately booked against Movsar Evloev, fight gets canceled, then gets Leron Murphy, loses and gets knocked out in the first round. I think Pitbull's gonna knock him out too. Aaron Pico is chinny. Knocked out 3 times throughout his career. Obviously, the other 2 are in 2019, where he lost to Henry Corrales, who got that win back eventually, and Adam Borch when Borch flying kneed him. But he's a chinny fighter. His striking has always been iffy, I'll say. His wrestling's great. And Pico just throws a lot of big haymakers and looks to knock his opponents out with everything he throws. Pitbull's going to counter. Pitbull's going to sit back, and I think he's going to find Pico on something. I understand Pitbull's power at 38 may not be where it used to, but I think he wins. Watch out for the clinch, too. Pitbull might catch him in, a Muay Thai plum. Legitimately, it's there for Pitbull. He's able to tie up with Pico, look for some knees and whatnot. I think Pitbull's going to win. I'm going to go first round knockout for Patricio Pitbull. The odds make me a little scared, though. I'm like, no way Pico's this big of a favorite. So maybe the books know something I don't, but I don't care. I'm going Pitbull to slime out Pico in the first round. Pitbull first round knockout. On to our main card opener, we go to a matchup between the Unks. More Unks are involved here. The 42-year-old Cub Swanson takes on the 37-year-old Nate Landwehr. Maybe I'm getting Mandela affected here, but did Swanson not retire after his last fight? I thought he retired. Maybe he didn't, but I don't know why I had that vision that he retired in Tampa after his fight. I don't know. He looked good in his last fight, right? Swanson wins. He's an underdog against Billy Quarantillo, who, just over the course of his career just started taking damage very poorly after the Shane Burgos fight. I legitimately think that's what happened to him. But Cub Swanson as a dog does take out Billy Quarantillo and knock him out in Tampa, earning his 15th UFC victory. I just have a vivid memory of Swanson winning at the end of the fight, and his wife was in the octagon, and I thought he took off his gloves. I don't think he officially announced his retirement, but said he'd think about it. Okay, I guess he's back. Nate Landwehr is the opponent. Nate the Train, at 37 years of age, is the younger fighter in this fight, and obviously you know what Nate the Train does. It is all action. It is kill or be killed. It is war mode all the time with Nate Landwehr. He does not take damage, nowhere near what he did when he was, kind of in his prime, I will say, when he was beating, David Onama in San Diego, or beating Ludovic Klein, which is a victory that still ages crazy. Nate Landwehr's lost 3 of 4. Because they gave him that big step up. He beat Austin Lingo, which was an odd fight. It was a short notice bout. It was supposed to be Caceres versus Landwehr, but they got Lingo on short notice in San Antonio. Nate the Train won, and they said, okay, we're going to give him a real shot. He fought Danny Ige. They put him on a main card of one of the worst pay-per-views I've ever watched, UFC 289, except for Oliveira. Charles DeBronx winning in Vancouver against Beneil Dariush. That was one of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen. It was awful. Regardless, Nate Landwehr lost to Dan Ige. They try to give him the step up. He loses. He then fights Jamal Emmers, wins obviously, and then back-to-back L's against the Korean Superboy, Do Hoo Choi, and then Morgan Chartier just knocked him out as well in July of last year. And again, the Chartier fight's great, but it's pretty clear Nate just does not take damage the way he used to. And that's a problem, again, because his style of fight's likely not going to change. There's a reason he's on the main card. Nate's going to come out here to open up the main card, fired up as always, going to get the crowd into it. These guys are going to go to war. Nate the Train's going to force the action out of Cub Swanson. The problem is Cub's going to connect in the chin, and Cub's going to knock him out. Swanson at 42 can still hit very hard, and that's been on display recently. He knocked out Darren Elkins in 2021, knocks out Billy Quarantillo in 2024, does not fight in 2025, sure. I think he's going to put Landwehr down. Landwehr's always been hittable, but his thing always was through his run when he beat Onama and beat Klein and beat Emmers. Okay, I can just walk right through this. I'm going to walk through this damage, and I'm going to put you down eventually. Like, you are going to succumb to the Nate Landwehr pressure. He got a fight in his home state in Tennessee against Morgan Chartier, against a French fighter. And Chartier, again, it's a war, but Chartier wins the war. Output's crazy, probably 1-1 going into the third. Chartier lands, boom, fight over. Cub's gonna land too. And I just don't love Nate the Train at 37. He's been doing this, he's been fighting this style for a while. I mean, remember when he came into the UFC and fought Darren Elkins in his second fight in Jacksonville? He lost to Herbert Burns in his first UFC fight in Raleigh. Yikes. But beat Darren Elkins. That was a fight where, there's nothing but blood. It was crazy. Very, very good fight back in Jacksonville, back in obviously the empty arena portion of the UFC. And, he's had nothing but fun fights, obviously, right? The Elkins fight's great. He's been doing this his entire UFC run. The problem is, okay, now you're 37 and you still have the same gimmick where you just do crazy, bloodbath fights, which is great for the fans. But now you're the one likely losing these type of fights. This is the type of fight that I believe Cub saw and said, okay, wait, I can get behind this. This is going to be a war. This is going to be a fight where, I'm going to be able just to strike all fight long, but the opportunities are there for Cub Swanson. Because I don't believe Cub Swanson's entirely signing up for, a firefight. Well, he is, but he's not signing up to, bleed buckets. He's signing up because he believes Nate Landwehr, which he does, is going to overextend. Swanson's going to sit back. He's going to counter. Boom, he's going to set him down. I think Nate's getting knocked out in the first round. That's crazy to take a 42-year-old Cub Swanson and win by first round knockout, but it's kind of just the way I see this fight going. I think Nate's about done. He's lost 3 of 4. Yeah, he beat Jamal Emmers, but Cub Swanson at this point of his career is better. Yeah, he's better than Jamal Emmers. Jamal Emmers just has moments, but he's better than Jamal Emmers. Even though, hey, Jamal Emmers just beat Hyder and Mills, so I don't know what to believe at this point. I just think Nate's run's kind of over. I think it peaked with the Dan Ige fight, where they gave him the main card fight against Ige. He lost, and yeah, he beat Emmers after that, but I think Swanson's still good enough to win this fight. The Quarantillo fight, I know, again, Quarantillo fell off massively after the Shane Burgos fight, but Swanson looks good. It wins fight of the night. He puts down Quarantillo in the third round, knocks him out. High output fight. He's able to fight with volume against Landwehr, and I think, again, Cub hits hard still at this point of his career. You saw it in the Quarantillo fight. You saw it in the Darren Elkins fight. He should be able to put down a Nate Landwehr, in my opinion, tonight. I'm going to go open up the main card. Cub Swanson gets it done by first round knockout. We'll see if this is the swan song for Swanson. See what I did there? But regardless, I think he wins, beating Nate the Train in the very first round by knockout. On to our next fight. We move to a matchup in the light heavyweight division where we are almost guaranteed a finish. Dominic Reyes versus Johnny Walker, arguably the 2 worst chins in the light heavyweight division, yet these guys still find ways to win. So here we are. It is the current number 10 ranked light heavyweight in the world, Dominic Reyes, versus number 12 ranked light heavyweight in the world, Johnny Walker. Walker coming off a huge main event win in China over Mingyang Zhang, a huge upset victory for Mingyang Zhang. Dominic Reyes coming off a loss in a title eliminator, let's say it. If he had beaten Carlos Ulberg, that's probably Dominic Reyes in the main event, believe it or not, against Jiri in a rematch. Oh, goodness. No, they would have just given it to Murzakanov at that point. I mean, no, they probably would have had to give it to Reyes. If he beat Ulberg, yeah. We probably would have seen Reyes Prochazka too. It would not have gone well. But Reyes now on the main card taking on Johnny Walker. Who lands the big shot first is the question. It's as simple as that. Who lands the knockout blow and whose chin is slightly better? Dominic Reyes went on a huge run, right, to get the Ulberg fight. It was crazy because I had written off Dominic Reyes, I'll be honest with you, right? After he got knocked out cold by Ryan Spann, we kind of just thought, okay, well, that's it for Dominic Reyes, right? 4 straight losses, 3 straight knockout losses. You're probably done. Comes back and knocks out Dustin Jacoby in Kentucky. Beats Anthony Smith, obviously. Beats Nikita Krylov, which, again, Krylov, his return has been up and down, sure, but at the time, the magnitude of that victory is absolutely massive for I want to call him the Dominator, the Devastator Dominic Reyes. Then runs into Ulberg and just looked horrible in Australia. Comes into that fight, and Dominic Reyes, again, the fight approach to me, at least it just felt like Dominic Reyes was sitting there waiting to get knocked out. He was just walking, backing up. Oh, I'm not going to throw anything. It is weird. He just waited for Ulberg to put him down, and eventually, Ulberg does that. And for a guy who's been mostly a point fighter in his UFC career in Carlos Ulberg, it was the fight he needed and the finish he needed to obviously get the championship fight this weekend against Prochazka. But Reyes loses, and now he falls back down the ranks to fight Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker, whose chin is absolutely awful as well, lost back-to-back fights by knockout to Magomed Ankalaev and Volkan Oezdemir. We thought he was getting fed to the wolves against Mingyang Zhang in Zhang's home country of China. Walker's a plus 300 dog in that fight, and he wins. Lands 50 significant strikes in the first round. In 40 significant strikes in the second round. Wins the bout by TKO in the second. Takes out the undefeated UFC fighter in the Mountain Tiger in Zhang. And now here we go. Walker's getting another big fight. I think Reyes wins. I think Reyes does. Johnny Walker, we know, is still very hittable. Whose chin is worse? I think it's Walker. It might be Reyes. I don't know. Legitimately, though, this fight comes down to who lands that big shot first. I think in terms of a technical striking approach, Dominic Reyes is better. I think so. In terms of a technical striking approach, Dominic Reyes is better than Johnny Walker. He is better. Walker's wild. He throws a lot of stuff. And yes, he can catch you and he can explode. He can blitz you like against Mingyang Zhang. I understand. I think Reyes is going to land that big shot first, though. I like the combos Reyes throws. Again, Walker, more of just a blitzing type, and he's going to throw his flashy stuff. I understand he's going to do stupid stuff in the octagon. It's Johnny Walker. I think Reyes is going to land that big shot first. So I think Dominic Reyes sets up his strikes a little bit better than Johnny Walker does. And obviously, we're expecting a finish. We don't have the over-under line yet, but I think an over-under should probably be a half a round. Legitimately, that's just kind of how I feel like this fight goes. That's just the thing. You got two fighters who hit really hard. Reyes and Walker still throw very hard and hit very hard. The problem is neither of which have a good chin anymore. They both have been knocked out so many times. Walker knocked out 6 times in his career. Dominic Reyes only 4, but his last 4 L's are all by knockout. And I'm not saying the Ulberg fight was a product of Reyes' chin being bad. Ulberg just hit him with a really nice combo, hit him with the jab and threw a cross right underneath it. Great. It's just, again, I did not like how Reyes approached that fight. To me, again, it felt like the moment was too big, which is odd enough talking about a guy who's fought in multiple title fights, fought John Jones and arguably beat John Jones, whatever. We're not going to talk about that. He just kind of sat there and waited to get knocked out. I think he should beat Walker. Reyes just needs to take a first step in this fight, and I do believe he's going to come out the victor. I really liked how he fought Dustin Jacoby. I know Jacoby's not the highest of level, but again, former glory kickboxer Dustin Jacoby. Great win for Reyes. The Krylov fight, again, Nikita Krylov's return has been up and down. He is coming now off a victory, though, where he knocked down Mederos Bukauskas in January. But that fight, for me, was just so great for Dominic Reyes because we expected Krylov to get him out of there after Krylov obviously came back from the dead after the war over there, I guess, for him in Russia/Ukraine. But anyways, I like Reyes to beat Johnny Walker. I would not... I don't mind betting on it, actually. Because Johnny Walker... If this gets into not in terms of just a technical boring striking fight, but in terms of who lands that shot and who's going to find that precise shot to put their opponent out, because neither chin is great, it is going to be Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes, I think he's going to counter Walker on something. Johnny Walker will overextend, he will blitz, and I just feel like Walker's going to be on the wrong side of a highlight reel knockout here. There's going to be a highlight reel knockout regardless, because whoever gets knocked out is going to get completely put out cold. I think Dominic Reyes will finish Johnny Walker. I'm going to go first round knockout, obviously, and I think Dominic Reyes is the guy to pick up the win. Reyes by first round knockout over Johnny Walker. On to our feature fight. I am really excited for this. Oh, why is my camera like that? I'm really excited for this fight. Curtis Razor Blaydes versus Josh Hokit. I've been waiting for this fight since it's gotten announced. There are rare fights at heavyweight that I can get legitimately excited for because we're going to get fights at heavyweight that are obviously, boring half the time because, they're just boring 15-minute decisions where neither guy really, does the most. And if it's not a knockout in the first round, heavyweight fights are crap for the most part, unless you're talking about elite level guys in the top 5. Josh Hokit, in his 3rd fight in the UFC, gets a chance to crack into the top 5 of the UFC's heavyweight division. And yes, Josh Hokit is currently 2 fights away from the world championship. If Josh Hokit wins here, he will be fighting Alexander Volkov probably in July International Fight Week. and he will set himself up to fight the winner of Cyril Gane / Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall. That's legitimately where Hokit is. No, sorry, he wants Waldo, doesn't he? That's fine. He'll fight Waldo. They don't want to give Volkov anything. They'll happily give Hokit Waldo Cortez Acosta. Hokit went after Cortez Acosta for being a deadbeat father, whatever. Okay. This is the fight, though, first for Josh Hokit. It is a massive step up, I understand. Going from beating Denzel Freeman to Curtis Blaydes is a huge step. I'll just say it now. I think he's ready for it. I'll say it again. I think Josh Hokit's going to beat Curtis Blaydes. As soon as this fight got announced, I think people kind of laughed at it and said, okay, why is Josh Hokit getting the step up? I know why. It's because they want him to win. They want Hokit in the top 5. You know, you may not like his gimmick / personality, whatever. It's something like, again, Colby Covington's shtick in his prime was phenomenal, okay? Hokit, it's different. It's different than Colby. I get why it gets, obviously, ties to Covington's. No one did it like Covington when Covington was doing his gimmick back in 2018, 2019. It was peak, man. Hokit's a little bit different, obviously, but he generates clicks. He says crazy stuff. Crazier stuff, honestly, than Colby says. Colby did say he was going to drag Leon down to hell to visit his father. So I don't know. Anyways, but they like Hokit. Hokit generates clicks. Hokit, former NFL player, albeit only, I think, 2 years in the NFL, one with the Niners, one with the Cardinals, whatever. He is a name. He's already become a name. He drops his promos, right? Called Brittany Griner a man for some, no, well, okay. I'm not going to get into that, but, called Brittany, it was random. That's what I'm trying to get at. Just randomly called Brittany Griner a man after his last fight, sure. But he's a name, and he's, you know who Josh Hokit is, and he's going to cut a wrestling-style promo after he wins. So it makes sense that they went from Denzel Freeman, where he beat Freeman and flipped Freeman off after he won, right? Flips Freeman off after he's, walks off, KOs him. Guys, Josh Hokit didn't get touched in the fight. The official significant strikeout from the UFC is 37-0 for Josh Hokit. He didn't get touched. Makes sense they gave him Curtis Blaydes. And I'll tell you this, Blaydes barely got by Rizvan Kuniev in his last fight. And yes, that's a fight that's actually aging kind of well for Blaydes. Because, yeah, he lost to Kuniev, but Kuniev's now ranked 7th because he beat Jailton Almeida, who's now obviously been cut by the UFC. But, the UFC's got Tyrell Fortune ranked 10th. Which, he has to be because he beat Tybura. But, guys, Tyrell Fortune wasn't even top 10 in Bellator. Top 10 in PFL. But he's top 10 in the UFC. Vadim Nemkov needs to get his ass over here now, okay? Vadim Nemkov would be top 3 right now in the UFC. Call me crazy. He beats Pavlovich. Vadim Nemkov does. Well, hell, I'm saying Josh Hokit's going to be top 5 after this because he should be. He's going to beat Curtis Blaydes. You may ask, how is he going to beat Curtis Blaydes? Okay, so Blaydes versus Kuniev. Not a great fight. Blaydes barely gets by. I thought it was the right call because 10-point must system. Blaydes takes Kuniev down in the first round. That's his. Third round, Blaydes is doing more damage this round. Kuniev easily wins the second. You look at their faces at the end of the fight, you'd think, oh, maybe Blaydes should have lost. But 10-point must system, yes, by the scoring rules, yeah, Blaydes does beat Kuniev. Was I impressed? Not really. Kuniev, steroid monster from the PFL, sure, whatever, got popped after he beat Hanan Ferreira in the PFL. Somehow the UFC signed him, sure, whatever. He beat Almeida in a horrible fight, who cares? I didn't love it, though, out of Blaydes. Because Curtis Blaydes in his prime would have ran through Kuniev. Curtis Blaydes would have ground and pound knocked TKO'd Kuniev out, I think, in the first round. He's 35, he's getting older, and that felt just like, a vet performance out of Blaydes where he barely got by, but I did not love the win. He won, which is great. He stayed in the top 5, but Curtis Blaydes beat Jailton Almeida, which, again, I don't know why the UFC cut Almeida. I get he was boring, but, come on. He should have kept him around. Sure, he beat Almeida. Almeida took Blaydes down 10 times, was it? 9 times in the first round, which, okay, I know Blaydes kept getting back up, but got mauled in that first round by Almeida. There wasn't a single strike landed in that first round, but still, Almeida was able to continuously take Blaydes down, and that's why I was so impressed with Almeida. But I'll tell you this, guys, it might be a hot take. I think Josh Hokit's going to out-wrestle Curtis Blaydes. And not just that, I think he's going to outstrike him, too. I think Hokit's going to dominate this fight everywhere it goes. I could be completely wrong, and it's completely a levels fight and Curtis Blaydes wins. When's the last time you've been ultra impressed by Curtis Blaydes in the octagon? It's March of 2022 in Columbus, Ohio against Chris Daukaus. And it's Chris Daukaus. That's the last time I've been wowed by Blaydes. We knew he was going to beat Dawkins. I remember at the time, I was like, okay, he's probably going to out-wrestle Dawkins, and it's going to be a decision. He knocked Dawkins out in the second round, but Dawkins obviously was never good in the UFC. That's the last time I was, not shocked, but I was like, okay, whoa, okay, I'm impressed by Curtis Blaydes. And yeah, the first Aspinall fight, not his fault. Aspinall blew his knee out, but he wins. Sure, okay. Knocked out by Pavlovich, beats Almeida. Aspinall rematch, gets knocked down in a minute. I think there's a very good chance Hokit's knocking Blaydes out in this fight. I think he can out-wrestle him, but at the same time, I think Hokit's got better hands. And I wasn't sure about Hokit's hands throughout his Bellator run and whatnot. Comes in the UFC, did not know how great the hands were going to be. Max Jimenez, first fight for Hokit, jiu-jitsu guy, knocks him down twice in 50 seconds. Denzel Freeman dominates on the ground, gets back up to the feet, and dominates on the feet as well, knocks the dude out in the very first round. I think he's knocking Curtis Blaydes out in the first round too. Oh, that's probably a hot take. I think Josh Hokit gets it done, though. Again, this is going to sound crazy. Wherever the fight goes, I think Josh Hokit's going to win. I might sound insane for that. I just think Blaydes is over the hill, guys. 35 versus Hokit, who's on fire right now. I think Josh Hokit wins, and I think the only heavyweights in the UFC that can beat Josh Hokit are Alexander Volkov and Tom Aspinall. I know that sounds insane. I think if he fights Pavlovich, he wins. He fights Waldo, he wins. Cyril Gane, he wins. If he fights Alex Pereira, I think he wins. I know that sounds crazy, but I think Hokit's that good. I actually think so. He's never lost. I know he's never fighting anyone like Blaydes, but here you go. He'll fight Blaydes. He'll get Waldo on International Fight Week. Waldo wants to stay active. He'll get Waldo. He'll beat Waldo. And they're not gonna make him fight Volkov. They're gonna say, okay, actually they might actually make him fight Volkov because the schedules don't line up. I don't care. Volkov will be interesting. Volkov will be really interesting because when that fight happens, it's like December probably underneath Aspinall versus probably Pereira or Gane, whatever. Oh, I forgot. Volkov's fighting Waldo. Oh my goodness, I forgot about that fight. No, he's just gonna fight the winner. Perfect. Yeah, there you go. It eliminates one of them. Great. I totally forgot the fight's happening. It's on the main card next month. Sure. Yeah, Hokit's gonna fight the winner. Probably Volkov, but maybe Waldo. Who knows? I think Volkov's probably be favored. That's Hokit's next fight. We'll see. He might be a fight away from the belt, which is crazy. Crazy. Josh Hokit beats Curtis Blaydes by first round knockout, I'm going. I think he chins him. If he needs to wrestle, I think he can out-wrestle Blaydes too. I think Curtis is washed. I think Hokit's so much better than people are giving him credit for being. Josh Hokit goes from unranked to 5th. We saw Fortune do it. We saw Dilia do it. It's time now for Josh Hokit. Our co-main event comes in the light heavyweight division. Azamat Murzakanov takes on Paulo Bohacinha. Costa. Murzakanov puts up his undefeated record at 16-0 against, again, the former middleweight title challenger in Paulo Costa. Sure, why not? Murzakanov, again, 16-0 undefeated, coming off a knockout victory over Alexander Rakic. Murzakonov's good. Joe Rogan's going to be on commentary. You know, if you've watched the fight that he had against Brandon Ribeiro, which Ribeiro yesterday just lost to Abdulrahman Yakyayev, and Yakyayev didn't look that great, but whatever, he submitted him. Anyways, you know, Joe Rogan loves himself some Azamat Murzakanov. Said that Azamat Murzakanov was the best undefeated fighter in the UFC when he beat Menafield. Said he was the best unknown undefeated fighter, I think, in the UFC. But yeah, he looked good against Brandon Ribeiro, beat Menafield prior to that, and obviously his last fight knocked out Rakic with a jab. Murzakanov's good. He's really good. I don't think he can finish Costa. I don't think, because Paulo Costa never been knocked out in the Israel Adesanya fight. And Bohacinha now goes up to 205 pounds, which is a little surprising. I guess that kind of just reveals to us why the Bruno Ferreira fight didn't happen on UFC 326. Costa couldn't make weight. It's always been a thing out of him, right? If you remember the very odd fight week between him and Marvin Vettori in the Apex during the midst of the pandemic, where Costa straight up came into fight week and said in first media day, yeah, I weigh 215 pounds. I'm not making 185. And everyone was like, dude, you're what? So they changed the fight to 205 and Vettori ended up winning. And Marvin Vettori, was at one point in time a high-level middleweight fighter, which is absurd. Guys, Paulo Costa's wins since he fought Israel Adesanya are Luke Rockhold and Roman Kopylov. Now, he actually has the style to beat Murzakanov, I'm gonna be honest with you. He hits hard, he can engage into a firefight, and that's the thing. I think that's how you have to beat Murzakanov. Because if you let Murzakanov sit back and pick you apart, he's going to pick you apart. He's got good hands. He's got really good defensive wrestling, so he forces you to fight the style of fight that he wants to fight, right? He sits back and waits for his big shots, but he's not going to over pursue those knockout blows. And again, he's just got a really good jab. He's got some really good straights. Again, just a really good striker. He's the professional, right? That's his nickname. I was about Murzakanov, the professional. Not going to over pursue, not going to over engage. Just really good kickboxing. Sure, again, he's 36, he's older, I understand. I believe the way you have to beat Murzakanov, though, is to just pressure him. And yeah, you're risking, getting countered and getting, I guess, highlight reel or flash knocked out, because Murzakanov has crazy power. Like, again, knocked out Rokich with the jab, I understand. Obviously, put down and knocked out Brandon Hibeto. Again, it's Brandon Hibeto, but whatever. Hibeto was beating Yakyayev on the feet yesterday, but who cares? I think that's how you have to beat Murzakanov. You have to go at him. Because if you sit back and wait and fight, again, fight a technical fight against Murzakanov, he's going to pick you apart. He's eventually going to put you away. I think Bohachinia, if we get prime Bohachinia here, he's the eraser now. But if we get Paulo, who just doesn't care and just going to throw caution to the wind and just go, maybe he beats Murzakanov. But can we trust in Paulo to just go for it in this fight? I don't think so. I think it's going to be more of a laxed approach from Costa. I have not seen a firefight Paulo Costa since the Rockhold fight, which happened in August of 2022. It's a long time now. It's been 4 years. He's only fought 3 fights since 4 years ago, where he lost to Whitaker, where he did wobble Whitaker, lost to Strickland, beat Kopylov. I will say Costa's power is always going to be there, and we have not seen Murzakanov yet really wobbled and rocked in the UFC. His entire UFC run has been quite easy. I'm not saying the fighters he's fought have been easy. Well, they kind of have been, other than Rokich, but even Rokich, whatever. But he hasn't really taken much damage. I'd argue the fight where he struggled the most by far was the Tafon Chukwi fight in his UFC debut, where Chukwi was probably up 2-0 in the third round, and Murzakanov then came on and kneed him in the head and knocked him out. Since then, though, Murzakanov has gotten off to better starts, and again, he's forced his opponents to just fight him in his style of fight, and he'll eventually just pick you apart and knock you out. Can Costa obviously switch things up? Can Costa fight fast? Can Costa throw caution to the wind and fight like he did against Yoel Romero back in 2020? Oh, that's so long ago. No is the answer. No, 2019 that fight was. Oh my goodness. No, Murzakanov's going to win a decision. That's why I feel like this fight's going to end. I think it's going to be one of those fights, and we see this a lot out of Paulo Costa. You watch it, and Dana White's going to say it in the presser, I just feel like Paulo could have done more. Paulo's got all that, he's got all that power, and he's got all that energy, but he just doesn't go out there and do it. It's what's going to happen here. It's not going to be a great fight, I don't think. And that's why I think they should have put Hokit Blaydes as the co-main, but it's okay. They decided on Murzakanov and Costa. Yeah, Murzakanov's going to pick Costa apart. I don't think he puts Costa away because, Paulo, Rob's not a heavy puncher, but obviously, goes full 3 rounds at Rob, doesn't get knocked out. Strickland doesn't really knock anybody out except for Fluffy Hernandez, but whatever. Costa goes the distance with people quite a bit. I don't think Murzakanov can put him away. I'm interested to see what version of Costa we get at 205, and like a version of Costa, obviously, that's been preparing for 205, because the version that fought Vittori was just not in wasn't shape, but just didn't really care, just wanted to get paid during the pandemic. So I am intrigued to see what happens tonight, or on Saturday, but I think Murzakanov wins. I think Murzakanov's going to pick him apart. I just don't think the output's going to be that high on either side. I think Murzakanov wins a decision. Watch out for the jab. It's just, Murzakanov hits hard. I think Kozachin's good enough to compete. Yeah, he beat Kopylov, looked really good, but Murzakanov, a whole different level, especially up a weight class, 20 pounds up. Give me Murzakanov by unanimous decision. On to our main event in the light heavyweight division for the championship, obviously at 205 pounds. The champion, Alex Pereira, has now vacated the 205-pound belt, or at least he will officially vacate at 205 on Saturday, and the champion will be crowned here. Again, the former champion, Jiri Prochazka, who is 0-2 against Pereira, takes on Carlos Ulberg. Should be a great fight. Should be, at least. We know Yuri's going to bring it to Ulberg, and the question I will propose in this fight is, can Ulberg fight off the back foot? He can fight off the back foot, but can he find success off the back foot against Jiri? Because that's what I imagine this fight's going to look like. That's kind of how Prochazka's always moving forward. Again, he can fight off his back foot, but you know how Jiri wants to fight. He's looking to back you down. He's looking to push you up back up against the fence and finish you up against the fence. But Prochazka, I will say, has been really close in some of these couple fights that he's had. The Jamal Hill fight is a competitive fight. Jamal Hill, after getting dropped in the first round, comes back and wins the second, but then Jiri drops him again in the third. The Khalil Roundtree fight is competitive. Fight ends in the third round, just like obviously the Jamal Hill fight did. Khalil, you could argue, definitely won the second. First round, I think Jiri got it, but it's a close fight going into the third. Maybe it's 2-0 Khalil. I'm not against that scorecard. Jiri puts it on in the third round, drowns Khalil, knocks him out cold. Nasty finish for Jiri Prochazka. That's kind of how Jiri fights kind of feel. It's just a matter of time before, okay, he finds that finish, but a matter of time before he breaks you in there because he just doesn't go away. You can hit him hard, but unless you put him out, he's going to stay in the fight. And the thing about Jiri Prochazka is he's 6-2 in the UFC, has fought nothing but elite high-level fighters in the UFC. His losses, oh yeah, it's to one guy. It's Poatan. It's Alex Pereira. Head kicked, obviously, in the second fight. Knocked down the first fight for the vacant championship. The only guy to put him away. Only guy to finish him in the UFC or beat him in the UFC is Alex Pereira. Is Ulberg good enough to be the second guy? Ulberg's good. His kickboxing is great. You know, he's a big light heavyweight, just like Jiri is, though. Jiri's 6'3", Ulberg's 6'4". So, I mean, we talk about like a light heavyweight in our last fight. Murzakanov's 5'11", 5'10". But Ulberg is a big light heavyweight as well, known for mostly just being a decision guy because of the Volkan Oezdemir result, because of the Jan Blachowicz result, where I thought Jan should have won, but whatever. Which doesn't really get talked about anymore, but whatever. It's fine. Jan got bumped to the prelims on the next card too because of the title fight, the flyweight belt, but it's okay. Ulberg's fight against Reyes is great. You know, he, again, jabs Reyes, which really rocks Reyes, and then obviously comes over the top with something else as a cross, but still, felt like a matter of time. Reyes looked scared in that fight. He did, let's just be honest. Reyes looked timid, and it looked like the moment was just too big for him. And Ulberg in his home area, obviously he's from New Zealand, but the fight was in Australia, eventually in that first round, late first round, it does finish Reyes. Great, earns his title fight. We're going to see Ulberg brought into deep waters in this fight. Can he survive? Can he stay afloat? That's what's going to happen, though, because, like, it's a Jiri fight. Jiri's not going to play that game with Ulberg, where Ulberg waits for you, he's countering the entire time, and for better or for worse, Jiri's going to end up running right through the counter. And it's either, does Jiri run through the counter shot and, you know, get to Ulberg in close distance, or does Ulberg continue to counter him all fight long, continue to use the jab, and every time Jiri's trying to enter, jab? Because again, Prochazka can throw at range. Obviously, you know, again, the striking style of Prochazka. But Ulberg's going to look to that jab all fight long. Again, Prochazka, though, he's got the longer reach. Jiri's got 80 inches of reach. Ulberg, 77 inches of reach. I'm interested to see what happens when Carlos Ulberg fights a Jiri Prochazka type fight. And the thing is, Prochazka has looked different against everyone in the UFC other than Pereira. In terms of, like, all of his fights have looked the same, kind of, to a degree, except for the Pereira fight, which is odd. Well, not odd, but it's just the way in which Prochazka's approached those fights. He, again, did not throw out the same volume because I believe he was so afraid of getting countered. Does he have that same respect against Ulberg? Because if he does, I think it's for the worst. Now, again, would he have lost the Pereira fights if he just had gone, you know, crazy and just, you know, insane output and just looked to run right through Pereira? Yeah, probably Pereira would have knocked him out anyways. But probably would have caught him with a short hook. Yeah. I think Ulberg can, but will he? I don't know. And can he land that shot? It's just, does Prochazka have the respect for Ulberg? And I also think like Prochazka just felt the power out of Pereira and just went, oh crap, how do I beat this guy? Don't think Ulberg's got that type of power. And I'm very intrigued to see what happens when Ulberg fights a firefight. The closest thing that we've gotten to that, we've gotten two fights where Ulberg has fought in a high output style of fight. One lasted 12 seconds, where Alonzo Menefield decided it was a good idea just to run at Carlos Ulberg, run at a guy that's 6 inches taller than you, and you're throwing up, and he's kind of punching down at you, and whatever. It was dumb by Menefield. Obviously, Ulberg knocked him out. The other fight, and it's a very long time ago, and it's Carlos Ulberg's 5th pro fight. It's the fight against Kendi Nzechukwu at UFC 259 in the Apex, a Blachowicz versus Adesanya main event. That's a firefight. Ulberg wins early, and eventually Nzechukwu breaks him. Nzechukwu knocks him out in the second round. I called that, by the way, plus 300 dog, plus 280 dog, whatever it was, plus 280 dog for Nzechukwu. We called that one. I thought Nzechukwu was going to beat Ulberg, and he did. And Ulberg hasn't lost since. But that's a fight that you look at and say, okay, hold on. If that's happening to you, and I get it, it was his 5th pro fight, but Prochazka is going to try to do the same thing. Ulberg might win early, but you know Jiri's not going to go away unless you completely put him out cold. Prochazka is always going to be advancing. Prochazka is always going to be looking to find that shot, always going to be looking to close distance. I actually think it's really difficult for Ulberg because Ulberg, I don't think, can outpoint Jiri in terms of the fight's not going to last 25 minutes. Because it's either Ulberg's going to eventually find that knockout or Prochazka's putting him out. Because the fight just won't last 25. And if you're Ulberg too, you got to come out this fight with a different mindset. Let me over pursue and try to get the finish, but it's also like, okay, I know I'm not going to beat this guy in a 25-minute fight because it's just not going to go that long. I need to be an active finisher in this fight. I need to pursue the finish, or also I need to be, cautious. Okay, this guy's going to walk forward. Can I catch him on the back foot? It's possible. I don't think he will. What also doesn't get talked about, Carlos Ulberg's 35. He's the older fighter in this fight. Now, Jiri's got 38 pro fights. Ulberg's got 14. I know, again, Carlos Ulberg, well-versed kickboxer, right? That's why he obviously came into the UFC late, started MMA late, didn't start fighting in professional mixed martial arts seriously until 2020 because he had a long list of kickboxing bouts. I understand. He is 35, though. And he's still in his prime, I'll say. But, we are getting close to, and yes, Pereira's obviously rewriting some of these narratives, obviously, about guys, kickboxers at this age. But we're getting to a point soon where it's like, all right, Ulberg might start slowing down a little bit. I don't think it's tonight, but I just want to put that out there. I think Prochazka wins. I would not be surprised if Ulberg wins the first round. But if he does not put away Prochazka, he is in trouble. Because, again, Jiri's going to keep walking forward, and like Jamal Hill, like Khalil Roundtree, Jiri will find a way to break you in there. And ultimately, that's what I believe is going to happen tonight, or on Saturday. I think eventually Jiri Prochazka is going to break Carlos Ulberg. Ulberg can't go into this fight in a point-fighting mindset, obviously. He needs to pursue a finish, but obviously can't over-pursue it. It's just you fight a different style of fight when you fight Jiri Prochazka. You think you have him beat, like Jamal Hill, like Khalil Roundtree, and he just keeps on bouncing back, and the guy hits like a truck as well. I just don't know if Ulberg is built for this type of fight. And if he wins, I'll give him all the credit in the world. You beat Jiri, who hasn't lost to anybody in the UFC, with the exception of Poatan Alex Pereira. I just don't think this is the style of fight Ulberg can win. If this was random example, if this is a pure kickboxing version of Magomed Ankalaev, I think Ulberg wins it. I think so, yeah. I would take Ulberg to win that fight. Or a Magomed Ankalaev that's the only way I can say it. A kickboxing version of Ankalaev, Ulberg probably wins because that's a points style of fighting. I think it is. It's a point fighting style of fighting. It is. Ankalaev not likely going to knock you out. Ulberg can sit back and pick Ankalaev, pick him apart at range. Obviously, if the fight happened, Ankalaev's wrestling plays a huge factor in that fight. Jiri's just different, man. And unless Ulberg's just on the money and connecting with everything, I don't think he wins. It's just, I think Ulberg's got to fight a very perfect style of fight, while Jiri just has to be Jiri, because he's fought Khalil, he's fought Jamal Hill. These are good kickboxers, and yes, Ulberg's a little bit different because of the tactical style in which he fights at, but I'm going to go Prochazka to win. Give me Jiri to reclaim the light heavyweight championship. The odds, by the way, Jiri a slight favorite at minus 130, Prochazka is minus 130, Ulberg plus 110. Tapology, 84% of voters are taking Jiri Prochazka. 16% of voters are taking Ulberg. I understand. I get it. Prochazka, fan favorite. Everyone loves Jiri, and no one's really a big fan of Ulberg in all fairness because he does kind of get the boring tag. I understand, even though he's coming off the knockout win over Reyes. I think, again, I'm not, the public, I don't love all the entire public being on Jiri, but yes, I'm going to side with the favorite here. Jiri Prochazka wins it by first round knockout. What the hell happens next with this title? I don't know. You'd think, maybe Ankalaev, but the dude doesn't fight. If I'm in the UFC, I'm booking Magomed versus Khalil. There's not many title challengers at 205. It's not a very good weight class. I just don't know what happens next. Call me crazy. The winner of Bogdan Guskov, Jan Blachowicz might end up in a title fight, especially if it's Jan. They just might do Jan versus Jiri next as a thank you to Blachowicz, I guess. They've never really liked Jan that much, but that might be the next fight. It's a really weird division, and with the inactivity out of Ankalaev, I just don't know who gets that next shot. Regardless, though, I'm going Jiri Prochazka to become a two-time light heavyweight champion. He will break Carlos Ulberg. I'm going to go late first round. I'm going to go... No, we're going to go third round knockout for Jiri Prochazka. I'm going to follow the same script we've been seeing. Third round knockout for Prochazka. I was originally going to go late first round, but no, I think this fight goes on a little bit. I honestly think Ulberg's going to win the first round. I think Jiri, as the fight goes on, is just going to get better. I think eventually, I don't think Ulberg is going to be built for this style of fight. Again, Jiri Prochazka reclaims the light heavyweight championship. Third round TKO, just like against Jamal Hill, just like against Khalil Roundtree. Jiri gets it done in the third by knockout over the New Zealander, CKB zone, in Carlos Ulberg. Folks, thank y'all for watching our UFC 324 predictions here on the channel. We'll be back tomorrow for our PFL Africa predictions, and then on Tuesday with our PFL Chicago predictions, which, by the way, PFL Chicago is running at the same exact time as this card, isn't it? Why? I don't know. But regardless, we'll be back in the next few days for our PFL predictions, and then back on Thursday for our best bets for UFC 327 as well. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to like if you did enjoy the video. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.